A reading from 1 Kings. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with a sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." Then he was afraid. He got up and fled for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah. He left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly, an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him and said, "Get up and eat, otherwise the journey will be too much for you." He got up and ate and drank. Then he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. At that place he came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
What are you doing here? A simple question that can feel like a right hook to the soul coming from the God of the universe. You know, going toe-to-toe with God is more terrifying than boxing with the late Muhammad Ali. This morning we find the prophet Elijah on the ropes. What was he doing in that sanctuary-like cave? He just contended like a champ against the priest of Baal. He should be speaking truth with confidence, not hiding like a scaredy cat. But right now he feels helpless. He's thrown in the towel. He's too tired to keep fighting for justice. Elijah's been a prophet for a long time, but even in his fatigue and frustration, he's still hungry for change, and he's still angry at the broken world around him. Have you ever been so hungry that you become angry? This can happen on a Sunday morning. Around 11:45, you start getting hungry. Maybe you didn't eat that donut in Sunday school. You start craving Sunday lunch. And then you get angry at the preacher who still has another 10 minutes left in her sermon. This painful experience is called hanger. Urban Dictionary defines hangry as when you are so hungry that your lack of food causes you to become angry, frustrated, or both. Hanger is a reality we all face, but you're not alone. The prophet Elijah is hangry. But this isn't some superficial first world hanger. He's not sitting in a restaurant, waiting impatiently, getting angry at the poor food service. No, he's hungry like a boxer is hungry for an upcoming fight. Did you know that before a fighter enters the ring, they must first weigh in, which means they have to spend the entire day fasting so that they can meet their weight bracket limit? Elijah is fasting in the desert, and he goes to bed hungry. Then an angel of the Lord wakes him up and gives him food for the long fight ahead. But his hunger runs deeper than his stomach. He is starving for justice, furious at what is happening in his country. The Israelites are worshiping their wealth, ignoring the helpless, and closing their ears to the cries of victims who are stuck in cycles of injustice. This outspoken prophet finds himself as a victim on the run, hiding from King Ahab and his deadly wife, Queen Jezebel. But this is nothing new. Victims forced into hiding, voices crying for justice, silenced by the aggressors of the world. The world has been broken and bullied for a long time. Every country and culture is full of predators who are devouring prey for more power. This morning, let's look at two power-hungry political leaders who are all currently on our minds: King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. Were you thinking of two different politicians? The stories of the prophet Elijah are interwoven with the political and religious history of the Israelite people. Following the death of King Solomon, son of King David, the nation of Israel is divided. You have the north and the south kingdoms. King Ahab has been ruling in the northern kingdom at this time and has already made some very poor political decisions. One major choice was cementing his alliance with the Phoenician neighbors by marrying their king's daughter. Her name was Jezebel, meaning a wicked or shameless woman. Jezebel is a name every father wants to name their sweet, cute daughter. Well, Jezebel brought to Israel her jealous religious piety towards the fertility god Baal. At this point in the story, she has left a long trail of victims who were a threat to her power. But let's be real, Elijah isn't an innocent victim here. No, if he hadn't been in that part of the kingdom at that moment, wearing his long wool robe, flashing his prophetic power around Jezebel, she wouldn't have attacked him. Maybe not. Then again, victim blaming is really a low blow. A sucker punch used to silence the innocent and distract from the guilty. These deceitful statements twist truth and harm souls, and are reasons why the voices of victims need to be heard. The story of Elijah is about people of faith trying to find the way, the truth, and the life in a culture where power has the loudest voice. Watching those who use power like a weapon, brutally beating down the weak with violence, should cause a visceral reaction within us. Sympathy is a nice way of acknowledging a person's pain from a distance. But empathy requires a deep, intimate connection. It moves us towards another human being. This deep connection grips onto our inner humanity. Horrifying events like we watched occur in Orlando a week ago should knock us out of our everyday realities. We cannot be distant. We cannot be numb hearing about another shooting, another rape, another case of domestic violence. We need to be angry, and we need to hunger for justice and peace. With all this violence and brokenness in our world, we need to embrace some anger management. In my experience, the best place to work through anger management is to take boxing lessons. And the best boxer to learn from is the great late Muhammad Ali. Ali was the ultimate fighter. He was a genius talent who started at the age of 12. And then when he turned 18, he won his first light heavyweight gold medal in the 1960 Olympics in Rome. He was an American Olympic. He was a professional boxer. And he was also an activist for civil rights. Every good boxer has a deep hunger that inspires everyone around them. Ali fought with a ferocious appetite inside and outside of the ring. He stood up for the helpless, projected the voices of the voiceless. His hunger for justice and peace in the world is what made him a legend. As people of faith, we hunger for justice and peace. This week, when you scroll through Facebook or when you turn on the nightly news, take an honest look within yourself. When you hear about another horrifying event, what happens down in your gut? Hearing devastating news can be paralyzing. The shock and horror can catch us off guard, leaving us sitting still with our mouths wide open. This physical trauma just happened to occur in my life several years ago, when my therapist encouraged me to find a healthy outlet for my anger. So I started taking boxing lessons. I figured, since I was part Irish, I should be a natural. My second lesson with a very enthusiastic, muscular woman, I realized that may not always be true. I'm halfway through the class, learning the proper punching form, learning the technique of bobbing and weaving, and the trainer keeps swinging her fist over my head as I duck down. Then all of a sudden, my bobbing and weaving stop working, and I take a right hook to the jaw. I'm shocked and caught off guard. I fall backwards, and then I realize that I have TMJ problems, and my jaw locks open all day. For the rest of the day, I had to sit on the couch paralyzed with my mouth locked open. When the world gives us a good right hook, we can either lock up or learn to roll with the punches. But this requires some training of the soul. And soul training leads us out into the wilderness. The wilderness is important for soul health. The desert is a spiritual detox, fleshing out our steady diet of adrenaline and busyness that really creates a comatose of spiritual apathy. A good detox should create deep hunger. Our very beings are created in the image of God and crave wholeness, a holiness that heals and nourishes. Elijah must feast on divine food in order to have strength for the next 40 days. God's peace is the only sustainable meal that nourishes us for the long road towards justice. But feasting on peace is harder to digest than the easy servings of fear we find every day on the news. We want peace to pop out of a vending machine whenever we feel the first pains of hunger. Unlike fear, peace is not some prepackaged snack. Rather, peace is more like a Texas peach tree. Did you know that once you plant a peach tree, you have to not only wait for it to grow, but you have to wait 6 years after the first fruits in order to get any edible fruit. How frustrating. Waiting for justice to grow and fruits of peace to produce seems painfully slow. It's frustrating and maddening. It makes us angry. But to a peach farmer, it's worth the fight for every single peach. As people of faith, we fight for every person with righteous anger. But we don't fight alone. We are not the sole beings in the universe ushering justice into our world. Elijah was not the first prophet on that mountain. Moses had been there hundreds of years before him, carrying the Israelite people to the promised land. Elijah won't be the last prophet. Elisha is already preparing to take his place. When Elijah finally decides to stop his pity party preaching, God speaks. The hurricane winds blow against the mountain, splitting the rocks, and Elijah huddles in the cave. Then the earth begins to shake, and he clings to the walls. Then a fire-like volcano erupts, and he shields his face from the fiery flames. Then a stillness settles. The air hangs heavy. Silence. Elijah opens his eyes, and he hears a faint whisper tickle his ears. A fiery, flashy God is now restrained and understated. God is now a silent messenger. It's difficult to hear the silent. Silence feels nauseating in a loud, chaotic world. You know, for such a noisy culture, we do a good job of silencing people. But then we remember that the Spirit of God hovered over the chaotic waters, that the Creator God spoke out into the darkness, that the Son of God descended into the depths. Our God uses the silenced to bring forth peace in our world. Silent messengers are often heard loudest at their funerals. Billy Crystal delivered a eulogy at Muhammad Ali's funeral a few weeks ago. He spoke highly of his dear friend who, even after he was stripped from his title, continued to fight for justice and peace. One day, Ali invited Billy to go out and work out early one morning at a local country club. Billy said to him, "I can't go there. That country club has a reputation for being restricted, meaning no Jews are allowed." Ali was furious. He said to Billy, "I'm a black Muslim, and I'm allowed to run there. I will never run there again." And he didn't. Billy said, "Throughout his life, Ali was a silent messenger of peace, who taught us that life is lived best when you build bridges between people and not walls." Ali was one of the most powerful people in his time, and he chose to be a silent messenger, living in peace in the midst of violence. The violence of this world screams at us every day. But then there are the silent messengers who give us encouragement and direction. God encourages us out of our sanctuary-like caves and back out into the world. In verse 15, God says to Elijah, "Go, return on your way. Go back out into the world. as the angelic messenger brought from heaven, offered Elijah bread for the journey. I'm reminded of Billy Crockett's famous song, Traveling Mercies. Take bread for the journey, and strength for the fight, comfort to sleep through the night, wisdom to choose at the fork in the road, and a heart that knows the way home. God offers us all traveling mercies. As we remember, peace is not a call to be silent, but a silent call to go. Go in peace, live in grace, trust in the arms that will hold you. Go in peace, live in grace, trust God's love. Amen.